Hello to everyone. Welcome to this next interview, a very interesting one in our series of interviews and panel discussions on cybersecurity. You're on Cyen Cybersecurity channel, so don't forget to follow us below. Like this, you would be notified for our future upcoming discussions. But about today, we have a very inspiring and very well regarded cybersecurity expert here with us, Jesus Luna Garcia. Jesus is leading the cloud and AI cybersecurity at Robert Bosch, and he would present to us today on the topic of cybersecurity certification by default and actually the utopia of cybersecurity. Couple of words about Jesus with his impressive resume, and then I would ask him to present some of his ongoing projects. He has more than 20 years of international experience in the field of ICT security, both from academic and industry perspective. He is focusing mainly on the cloud computing systems, a very, let's say, topical and important infrastructure for any kind of digital development. And now is driving the cloud security governance and certification activities at Robert Bosch. Welcome, Jesus. Thank you for coming, sparing time to speak to us and to our viewers.
Thank you so much, Eva, to you for the invitation. And of course, it is my pleasure to be here in your channel for this interview.
We met Jesus at ENISA conference in the beginning of the month. We were there. Maybe this is a small announcement from my side. I have joined the ENISA ad hoc working group on cloud security. So this is a limited group of 20 appointed experts appointed by the executive director of the European Cybersecurity Agency to work on the future European cloud security certification. So we met at this conference in Athens. Jesus is much more senior member of this ad hoc working group. And he also presented very interesting projects as well as the talk on the utopia of cybersecurity. And this is just one small part of your activities. Jesus, can you share with our audience what are your key exciting projects and what can they learn from it, what they can expect from it?
Sure, Eva. As you have mentioned, the first big project where I am involved, and it has been already 3 years that I am part of this ad hoc working group created by ENISA, or European Cybersecurity Agency, where we have been developing the so-called European Cybersecurity Certification Scheme for Cloud Services, EUCS for short, where now I have the pleasure to be also collaborating with you. And this is an activity that is very important. We will talk more about it later, because the idea is to create a security certification for the cloud that allows to have much more transparency about the way that cloud security works. More transparency, not only for the providers and the technical people, but also the idea is that for the citizen, for the people that they buy, for example, a connected product, that they know exactly what to expect from a cybersecurity perspective. The second activity, and actually is very related to this certification scheme, has to do with a European funded project, which is called Medina. And this project where Bosch participates as partner, and in my case, I have the role of the technical director of it. We focus on what we can try to call the next generation cybersecurity. So that means how we can use automation, lots of automation, in order to facilitate the current work that one has to take during a certification process. So we try to make things easier for the different stakeholders, not only for the auditors, but also for the auditees, cloud service providers, etc., in order to take all these nice features that we can get from the cloud with automation, artificial intelligence, etc., in order to trigger this hopefully in the next few years. And then last but not least is the topic of cybersecurity for artificial intelligence, where I have started also working on this by Bosch since January this year, and trying to put together what we call the cybersecurity, the governance aspects for artificial intelligence in our different services and products. How can I say not only that AI can be protected, but also how can we trust the aspect of trustworthiness from a holistic perspective on AIs. So these are the three major projects where I am currently working.
Very exciting and very much also aligned with your title. You combine three very topical buzzwords: the AI, the cloud, and cybersecurity. First and foremost, admiration for for this. This means you're a very busy and important man. But how do, from your perspective, how do those three topics interact with each other, complement, or perhaps also create issues?
Yeah. So we have to take into account that, first of all, let's talk top down. So if we talk at the top from an AI perspective, artificial intelligence, nowadays we see that artificial intelligence, it's everywhere. So we have products that are enabled with artificial intelligence, talking about, for example, IoT devices. We talk and we see also artificial intelligence that is used, for example, a lot in video games. My kids, they are fans of video games, and we see artificial intelligence is all over the place. Artificial intelligence, however, by itself, it needs also the computational capabilities of the cloud for storage, for processing power. So we see that the AI is not really living in isolation. So for us as security people, when we see at the AI and when we talk about, okay, how do I protect the AI that is in there? So then we need to look, okay, where it is this AI located? Is running in the cloud, is running in some kind of very complex hybrid multi-cloud environment. So what do I need in order to make sure that the whole ecosystem is secure from that perspective? So this is where the three topics, AI, cloud, and I put it at the moment a little with the in quotes, cybersecurity certification or cybersecurity labels, which is also some interesting movement there, takes also an important place in order to tell us as consumers of these AI applications running in the cloud, why should I trust in them? Why these are secure and under which principles these are supposed to be certified from a cybersecurity perspective?
You touched upon the topic of cybersecurity certification, and indeed this is also the main subject of today. You're also a very important expertise. How would you define cybersecurity utopia or certification by default?
Okay, that's an interesting question. That takes me to, you were referring at the beginning when we met in Athens for this ENISA conference. I also had the chance to participate on a panel precisely talking about the future of cybersecurity certification. So I will tell you what is my ideal utopic world that I see in the future, and hopefully before I have to retire. So the way that I see certification working in the future, first of all, is automation. Currently, the certification processes and the viewers that they are seeing us, that they have been going through certification processes, they know how much time, how much effort, how much money it takes. You have to prepare almost the whole year in order to be certified, then you finalize, and then you have to start with the next certification that also you have to pass. So I always make the analogy like when we were studying at the university preparing for exams. We study a lot of time for the exam, we pass the exam, and then we need to start preparing for the next one. So I see that automation is going to play a very important role in the future, facilitating the work for the auditors and also for the ones that have to pass the audit. So in order to achieve this level of automation, of course, we need a lot of things before, which is, first of all, how do I define the automation? What do I need to automate in the process? How can I make sure that something that works today in the traditional certification processes, for example, the value of the evidence, if we can grab this from the cloud provider, from the artificial intelligence application, how can we make sure that this digital evidence has the same value to the auditor than the current evidence when they do in the traditional processes where they request us the documentation, etc. So another point associated to this utopic certification war on my head is, you mentioned it also at the beginning, security by default, and now starting to move to certification by default, or maybe better said, certification by design, which was also something that that ENISA was mentioning a lot during the event that they organized. So here I am, let's say, I see pros and cons from this certification by design future utopic world. On the one hand, I clearly see the advantages that if we are able to convince all stakeholders that cybersecurity certification, it gives us a security baseline that is good for our products and our services and avoids market fragmentation, that at the moment we have so many certifications that it looks like a poker game. So if we are able to go into achieving this common baseline in Europe, and who knows, in the future, maybe it can extend even outside of Europe, then this will be actually great, I think, for our customers that we have. So I see that positive point on the topic of cybersecurity certification by default, but also I see a risk where providers, they will see the certification as a goal and not as something that is intermediate in order to have quality in their services and products. Because in some cases, it may be that they misunderstand what is the meaning of having a baseline with the meaning of having the security that should be achieved by the products. So we all have to understand, and this is a very important role also for policymakers, for ENISA, etc., that we need to make sure that everyone understands the value and the place of certification. Everyone understands that certification is much more than just a checklist, and that certification is part of the way in order to achieve state-of-the-art or excellent security, but it's not the ultimate goal. I think this is part of this utopic world that I see in the future.
Thank you very much for emphasizing on the complexity of certification. I see it as a cybersecurity consultant. I work with large organizations which understand that the certification is just the outcome of their let's say improvement processes, because security has business value. And you could see a moment for commercial, you could see our webinar on business value of cybersecurity also in the list. But what we see as an issue is that security is increasingly expensive. Certification is seen as a very expensive document for SMEs. They don't understand yet that this is just the result of a journey, and this journey is something that I hope experts like you, consultancies like ours, and policymakers will be able to facilitate and to clarify. And you also mentioned that certification, okay, by design, by default, is something that policymakers and ENISA is looking at. But I wonder, is there any best practices examples? Is it something already implemented in other sectors of the economy? Is it something implemented for safety, for instance? Or do we expect now cybersecurity to be leading and piloting in this field?
Okay. This is actually a very good question, Eva, because I am not a safety expert, so I can tell you from the cybersecurity perspective. So there are sectors that are highly regulated. So for example, financial sector. financial sector, e-health itself, they have to fulfill some very specific standards and they have to get some specific certifications in order to be able to access to the market. So if we focus from that perspective, then of course the notion of certification by design is something that already exists. However, and there is something that we need to take into account, all of these schemes that are being created by ENISA, all of those, they are coming from the Cybersecurity Act. And these schemes, in principle, they are not mandatory, they are going to be voluntary. So this comes very interesting into account, because what we are going to see, or what we are hoping to see from the certification market, and this is something that I see the novelty in the Cybersecurity Act, is that actually the providers, they will themselves, they will see a value on the topic of cybersecurity certification. They will start designing the products to see, okay, I have the several requirements that have been created by ENISA as a baseline. I can put something on top of it if I need it. But once that I have created this baseline, the effort to be certified then actually is not going to be that high for me. And if certification, once that I fulfill the requirements, has a market differentiator, is going to make me different to my competitors, then I see the value and the novelty, the innovation on these schemes that they are going to invite, and they are going to gently push the different stakeholders to actually go into this direction. I have achieved the baseline, now let me get certified in order to differentiate from my competitors. So I hope that this is going to work into that direction, and we will see in the following years.
Yes, indeed. So you mentioned that there is the element of building upon. So we don't want with each certification to start from scratch and to require a complete different set of requirements. What we want to have at the end of the day is a framework which has some common security requirements that everyone agrees upon, that improve security. So we don't do it just to tick the box. We also want to see the end product, services, processes contributing to the security of our customers, of our businesses. And so we want to see these common requirements, and then we have also specific sectorial requirements in certification. And you touch upon the Cybersecurity Act, which gives the framework for the EU, so the governance, how security certifications could be developed in the future. And this is indeed the starting point of the certifications schemes that we are working on. We work together on the cloud security, but in parallel there is a 5G security ongoing. We also have on the common criteria more for the trust products certification. So this again makes me wonder, we have this legislative base to start building upon certifications. We have the work ongoing in a couple of fields of certification. What else is there on the ground ready to support this certification by design? And what are the potential gaps? So what is in the to-do list to be able to achieve this objective?
Okay. That's a big question, because I will say that we have been working in the last 3 years by creating what we call the core of this certification scheme for cloud services. But even though we have been putting 3 years of effort on creating this, and currently we are in what I will call the last mile, so we are almost there, finishing the core, the requirements, the methodologies for the conformance assessment. Now comes the second part of the work, which I think is also very challenging, which has to do to how to be in a voluntary scheme, how to motivate, how to incentivize, and how to create everything that should be built around this EUCS, really to bring it to the market and to bring customers and providers to it. So from my perspective, and I always refer on cybersecurity, we hear very often about the PPT, which is people, processes, and technology. So we need, from a people perspective, I always give the example of my grandmother. We need to make sure that the citizens, my grandmother, she is going to be able to understand why and what is the value of buying a product that is certified with one of the schemes of the Cybersecurity Act. Because if the certification increases, for example, the cost of production, the cost of having a product in the market, and this cost has to be paid by the end consumer, then she needs to understand, my grandmother and also older citizens, why they are paying an extra. This is increasing the level of security, and why this is important for me. Why do I need to have as citizen an increased level of security? And of course, at the end of the day, also trustworthiness in the product. So a lot of more market impact has to be created. We have to talk with the people at the right level in order to tell them the importance of this Cybersecurity Act. We talk about processes also. When we talk about processes, I talk on the one hand on the internal organizational processes of the companies to really embrace this new set of security requirements that we are putting together on the EUCS. We talk about the audit companies, large and small audit companies, that they should be able to be have accreditation in order to participate in all the certification schemes. We talk also about standards. We talk about standards and hopefully open standards that can be used in order to bring them into the cybersecurity schemes that are being created. These open standards that they can be used and are understood by the different stakeholders that they need to implement these cybersecurity certifications. We talk about the legislative aspects. So when we talk, for example, about digital evidence, once again returning to this topic of automation. So I need to make sure that policymakers, that everyone understands the complexities, but also the advantages that we can have with these new future certification schemes, where we have introduced the notion of automation, when we have introduced the notion of composability, notions of notification of vulnerabilities. So everything sounds very complex when we put it people, process, technology, everything that is needed. But I think that we have really experts. We have very good stakeholders that are participating in the working groups. We have multidisciplinary working groups, and you know quite well about it, Eva. And we have really, ENISA, I think, they have really to take this central role in order to put together the different stakeholders and to make successful the different schemes that they are creating.
So there's a lot of expectations from ENISA to make it all work together, but you also mentioned areas that I think there's a role for users themselves, a role for professionals like us, academia, policymakers. So how would you best describe it? What would be your call for action to make cybersecurity certification success for each of those specific groups?
Okay. So first of all, ENISA, for me, ENISA is really at the top of the pyramid, and it's not only because I think that they should be at the top of the pyramid, but also the Cybersecurity Act. They are really enabling ENISA to be at the top and to be the main key player in order to promote and to create the cyber certification schemes. They have the experts, they have the network of contacts, and they can really help to do the market penetration of the schemes. So they have this very essential role, and of course they are putting together the ad hoc working groups like ours in order to do the actual technical work in creating the scheme. Industry, I see that also we as industry, we also play a very important role as early adopters of the scheme. We need to start showing by example. practical experience, how difficult or how easy these small tips that we can give, hints that we can give also to other stakeholders, best practices, how to get certified. If you already have some kind of certification, what is the effort in achieving, for example, an EUCS certification? We need to start showing also if this is bringing some business added value for us as industry. We need to start talking with some other peers that we have with these big groups of industrial partners in order to promote the schemes. Academia, there is, I see academia from and technology centers, I see a lot, and I can tell you from the Medina experience, a lot that they are helping us to do in order to facilitate with the technology that we can get, for example, from the cloud, and how we can really profit from that technology in order to make it a little easier as entry point, not only for the big cloud service providers to be certified, but also for the small cloud service providers. I always put the example for the small SaaS providers, software as a service provider, that consists of 2 people that are in Berlin. So also we need to make it achievable for them. Academia, research, innovation, they will help to create these tools to make it easier for them to achieve. And then last but not least, I make again emphasize the role of the users, not only the cloud service customers in the case of the EUCS, but also the citizen, the users. They are a very important element on the certification chain. And if they don't perceive a value that is bringing for them also as user of the service or the product, a value from the security label of the security certification, then that means that we are doing something wrong. We really need to bring them, convince them of the value of having this new kind of certification.
Absolutely, this was also my thought when we were discussing the schemes. What is it and why do we do them? Is indeed objective is to address the requirement or the needs of users, of businesses, to have more clarity or to have more secure products as well for them to employ for their either social private life, but also a very important aspect is for our industrial competitiveness, our security of our industry. So indeed, if there is no request from users, probably we are not doing the right thing. From my experience, there is an interest, of course, there's a need for more secure product services, and there is a huge bottleneck when it comes to companies trying to assess on their own with the absence of a certification scheme. What large companies do, they would do third-party security assessment, and this is a very, very large activity, expensive, and it takes also expertise that we could not expect smaller companies to have. And this is what I see as added value also of certification schemes, which would provide this assurance, this information ahead without the needed investment of the SME to assess their suppliers. So wouldn't we agree? Certification is very needed, very useful. Hopefully we would make it also very workable, and our audience, I hope they would find it useful, but don't hesitate to put comments or questions in the chat. We would regularly review those and get back to you if there were any other questions that we didn't cover up until now in this interview. This also brings me to the idea that certification per se is not just the product at the end, it's also the cooperation that the NISA is creating between public authorities, between experts. Me and you, we know each other because of this ad hoc working group, and this brings value also to our audience because I was able to invite you today. So this community building and knowledge and ecosystem is absolutely necessary to be able to use our limited cybersecurity resources to multiply the impact. And speaking of multiplying the impact, I know you have a very, very big impact when it comes to security, to certification in Europe. So can you share, Jesus, what is next for you? What are the projects you would be working in the short, long term? What our viewers maybe can follow you on social media and where to learn about and to keep up to date?
Sure. Thanks, Eva. So first of all, let me very quick take on one of the last sentences that you mentioned, because that was also something that I heard a lot during the ENISA conference. Sharing is caring. And I think ENISA is really trying to go into this direction where we say, okay, let's use the capabilities, the know-how from the people that we are from our network of contacts in order to support other stakeholders to get the certification and to understand the certification. I know that the NISA, they are putting together already a website in order to offer and to put in contact these kind of experts. So this is definitely something that we need to go more into this open knowledge and to share the open knowledge and expertise with other people. Projects that where I will be working in the short midterm. So first of all is this our Medina project. We will put it afterwards on the comments, but it's medina-project.eu. As mentioned, this is a project funded by the European Commission, and our aim basically is to support the adoption of the EUCS with automation. Many of the automation that we are creating is going directly to open source. Once again, sharing is caring, and supporting ENISA, supporting the standardization community in order to bring more and more automation into the focus of certification scheme. So Medina will be taking a good part of my time during the next, I think is 18 months still to go in the project. The second activity, which I am also pretty excited, is to continue to understand the topic of trustworthiness, cybersecurity for AI. I think that despite AI has been a long time there, now we are getting at the point where technology and science, they are converging for AI as they did 10 years ago for the cloud. Now we are making it more close to the user, to my grandmother, etc. And now we as experts, we have the duty in order to make it secure, in order to make it trustworthy. And now for me, this is also the other big activity that what do we need to go into that direction? This will be something that is coming little by little in the future.
Thank you very much, Jesus, for sharing with us. Sharing is caring, indeed. Please leave in the chat where can our viewers follow you. LinkedIn, for instance, what are your contact details, as well as the Medina project. I'm sure there would be a lot of interesting activities, and if they want to support you or to just follow the development, this is the best place to go to. Thank you, Jesus. We stay in touch. This is just the beginning of the collaboration. It was not goodbye.
Thank you so much, Eva. Thank you for being by. Bye.